Welcome to the Bears on Tap Offensive Line Film Room, bringing you all 22 views and breakdowns on the Chicago Bears offensive line. Presented by Quentin Q. Crisco and the one and only Ron Luce.
And welcome in. We are here to have some fun today. We are here to talk about offensive line. Typically, every week, we are talking Bears offensive line. But this time, Ron, we want football to be fun. We're talking potential free agents for the Bears offensive line. Offensive line, not offensive O-line. But, Ron, how are you doing this evening?
Q, I'm good. The new year has rung in. And, I'm a little thankful for this week because we didn't have a preview show, obviously. We did have a post game, but no preview show. I think we all know what we're getting ourselves into because it's Green Bay week.
Right.
So yeah, I'm ready to have some fun and talk about some big guns that could be big additions to this Bears offensive line next year, potentially in free agency. Obviously, we know the Bears are going to focus on offensive line probably through the draft as well, and we'll certainly get into that as building the board season comes around here in very short order. I mean, we're only a week or so away from that really starting to pick up around the walls of On Tap Sportsnet, but it'll be fun to see some guys that'll be coming available, mid-March that the Bears can use some of that $80+ million of cap space on to bring in and hopefully shore up the trenches a little bit. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I am like you said, we're not doing a preview show this week. We're just going straight into this stuff because we thought about making this a preview show and it was like we can only talk about so much stuff, over and over. And it's like, let's get into something that we think is more interesting. And we love doing the O-line shows. I think O-line free agents is right up everyone's alley right now. So hopefully let us know if you guys like this, if you guys would rather have a more traditional show. And, we're here for you guys. But without further ado, let's get this thing rolling here with some Trey Smith tape. And
let's do it.
Let's see. Let me make sure I get the layout right. Oh, no, we want to be on the screen. I think that works.
That's beautiful.
All right. So first up, we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs right guard, Trey Smith, number 65 right here. He is an upcoming free agent. He might have just made a Pro Bowl, or he might be I'm not sure if he actually made it in or not, but there's stuff on his tape that you see where you go, okay, you can work with that. Like he can absolutely control guys start to finish, dominate them throughout the rep. But one thing I noticed throughout his tape, and we'll get to just like watching it here and get thoughts, but my initial thoughts watching it were this guy's not a finished product yet. There are a lot of ups and downs still. It almost reminds me a little bit of like Tevin Jenkins' tape last year, where it was like, okay, there's still stuff for him to straighten out, but you know what? He wrecks guys. And I think he comes with fewer of the health concerns that you get with that you had with Tevin Jenkins, especially now.
Definitely. Yeah, and to your point, Q, just to confirm, he is one of the 3 offensive guard selections for the AFC Pro Bowl team. So he is a Pro Bowler this year, joined by Joe Thuney, who in this case is playing left tackle because he's just a badass. And I know you and I talked about that separately, and Creed Humphrey as well. So 3 Kansas City offensive linemen are making the Pro Bowl. Everybody wonders why Kansas City's only got 1 loss on the season, Q. When you got 3 Pro Bowlers up front, that usually helps.
Yeah. And so with this one, I just watched their second most recent game, their Christmas Day game against the Steelers, because that's a strong defensive line. And I went through my normal grading and pulled every positive and negative play, negatively graded play that I had in here. On this one, I thought that he did a pretty nice job off the combo. Let's see here. So combo, he got into it, generated a little movement. I think his hands might have been a little off, but got that guy 2-gapping to the wrong side. But I would have liked to see him get some more punch there on the linebacker. I think he did a good enough job, but I think this one I might have given him a neutral grade on, but I wanted to include it to show that second level kind of, he makes some space, but I'd like to see him get a little more oomph in there, a little earlier with his punch.
Yeah, I think you certainly, especially when it comes to the second level, but I think you have to be happy and impressed with what he and Creed Humphrey are able to do at the first level first, right? Taking care of business, getting a lot of movement on that down lineman. And you can see it. I think their rules got a little messed up here because you see him looking out like their objective in the stack is not Patrick Queen. And I think then they end up having to readjust, and eventually he just takes Queen trying to make a play there. Really good play by Patrick Queen. He's no schmuck, obviously. Really good linebacker for the Steelers now, obviously former Baltimore Raven. But overall, man, you got to be happy with that movement. I mean, he's getting to the second level. He's giving him a good look. Queen's a sneaky one, man. He makes a play and scrapes over the top.
And I thought he does a nice job trying to finish on most reps, and he doesn't end up on the ground a whole lot either, which is nice to see. This one, he gets worked here by Keanu Benton. And that this is where I say there's some inconsistencies in his game. His run blocking, there is a decent amount of inconsistency, and still he has all the traits to be a really strong run blocker from everything I've seen. But just technique wise, I think there's some stuff to clean up there, and maybe just general awareness of, how guys are going to throw hands at him, what moves guys are going to bring to him. Because like right here, he just got worked. Like the play was probably DOA regardless, but it didn't help that he got tossed by Keanu Benton.
Yeah, and Keanu Benton, certainly not a schmuck, right? You put it perfectly. This Steelers front is probably one of the better fronts in the league. And you got to like the start of it. I mean, he's got a good punch initially. He gets into him, but he lets Benton get those shoulder pads. And that's part of the reason he's able to just get tossed like that. And Trey Smith, a big guy, to meet Q, I mean, feels like a little bit of a non-traditional guard. I mean, he's 6'6", 320. Like, that's almost tackle size.
He was a tackle in college.
Yeah. And you definitely see it. I mean, he's a big dude. And, that might be part of what is playing into some of his run blocking inconsistencies, because run blocking as a guard versus run blocking as a tackle are very, very different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think we see that a little bit with Matt Pryor at times right now playing.
Definitely.
Bears. Similar size here to Trey Smith, but Pryor's a little more lumbering with his size. So this one, he does a great job of generating that movement and sticking with it. This is just a few reps later after he got tossed. So this one, I felt like he really just generated that power through his core and is able to push Benton just right out of the run lane there and keep it moving.
I think on top of it too, I like how Smith, and even on all these reps, even the reps that he hasn't looked the best on, he's able to finesse his body where he wants to go. I feel like we saw very little of that with the Bears in our film reviews over the course of the year, Q, where guys would want to go somewhere and they just wouldn't get there. They wouldn't get their body positioning where they wanted to be. Every single one of these, Trey Smith in this case, on the inside shoulder of Benton, pushing him out of the hole. On the last one, doing the same thing, ultimately got tossed, but still in that right state of mind, trying to cover him up. I think just the body placement and positioning is such a difference that we don't see right now with the current Bears offensive line, outside of maybe on occasion a guy like Darnell Wright.
Yeah, this torque and drive right here. There's a reason I keep rewinding it back to it. Like, that's what I'm seeing. And you're right. Like, I mean, I think last year with Tevin, you saw a lot more of that than you've seen this year, where I think you've seen Tevin struggle to generate his power from unideal positions, where it's something you saw all over Trey Smith's week 17 tape of like, yeah, he's generating power from any position he's in and really able to. And to me, that's one of the biggest traits I look for an offensive lineman is how do they generate power when they're out of position, out of ideal space, out of balance. And it's something that I think Trey Smith shows a good ability to do.
And that's one right there. I mean, as he's falling over, you see the legs still churning, still getting that push, still able to completely leverage his man out of the hole. And this is just really nice blocking from him and Jawan Taylor, too. I know Jawan Taylor kind of gets forgotten about on this Kansas City offensive line, but still a very good right tackle. And, I mean, he's getting that push all the way through the end of the play. I mean, you gotta be happy about that. And, obviously in a perfect case scenario, right, you're like, well, maybe if Taylor was able to see, scrape it over the top. But, I mean, again, they take care of first level first, Smith, but that power right there, and you can see it. I mean, he is almost completely horizontal to the ground and
Yeah.
he's still getting movement.
You'd love to see that angle right there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you necessarily love to see it, but like in this scenario, given what they faced here, like I love to see that play power, that play effort of just like, I am going to drive this guy off the field no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. That extra effort, especially in a non-ideal instance.
Yeah. And this one, again, this is where it's like that he's in an awkward position. I mean, that's not ideal right there, but he's able to get his hands in place, set down, and start hopping back. Like, you don't love that, but like the fact that he's able to get into that position and hold on to his guy, like that's from the position he was in. That's decent. That's probably good recovery in my mind.
Agreed. And again, I think we at times this year with the Bears. Now, mind you, I believe that is Hayward working on him here when he starts to get bull rushed as well. So it's not just your every average NFL offensive like defensive lineman. This is one of the best pass rushers, one of the best defensive linemen, period, in football. I feel like we saw so many times guys like Tev and guys like Braxton where they would try to get into that hop back and they never could because they were so off balance. And they never could get to that anchor. They could never get to the anchor. Trey Smith has no problem getting to the anchor, even if he is getting beat. He's at least able to get to the anchor and start to slow down the progress of whoever it is that's trying to bull rush him. And that's exactly what you see here with Hayward trying to go against him.
And I do like the process here. You know, he throws a hand, recognizes, wait, this guy isn't trying to come at me, flips his head over and says, oh, well, I got this guy coming. Like, his body position was a little slow, but his recognition up here I thought was on time.
Yeah, and honestly, if you are a somewhat technically sound offensive lineman, but you have that high IQ and that recognition and just that intelligence and awareness on the offensive line, that can make up for a lot of deficiencies in your actual game, especially on reps when you're going against guys who are probably going to be in Canton, Ohio once they're retired.
Yeah. Let's see what happens on this one. So he has nobody. I think that he just finishes the guy here. Yeah, this was just an angry rep, which I give pluses for these reps because that's not required. You know, that's a demeanor thing, and I want to see that demeanor in offensive linemen that are playing for the Bears.
And can we talk too about that last play? I know it's just him finishing off at the end, but I think it's the extra dose of nasty at the end too.
Yeah,
because and good recognition too, right? He's got 51. 51's his guy. 51 bails. You immediately see that head snap to the right. So he knows where he's going. He knows who he's helping. He's coming after Taylor because he knows that's TJ Watt outside.
Yeah.
Comes, finishes him off, and then as Juwan Taylor is getting pulled down by TJ Watt at the end of this play, you'll see Watt get his hand up in kind of the neck, chest, or neck kind of shoulder pad area. Trey Smith goes down with him and just bullies him and finishes him off at the end. It's that extra dose of nasty that we really haven't seen out of the Bears this year. That's something that is incredibly welcome because if you continue to punish these pass rushers rep after rep after rep, that's going to wear them down in the fourth quarter when they're trying to make that game-saving sack or that, game-saving tip of the ball on a pass rush. That's going to break them down when you got guys as big as Trey Smith just bodying a guy as small as TJ Watt. TJ Watt compared to Trey Smith size-wise is a huge mismatch.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of weight falling on him with two guys instead of one. Like, it's almost saying, hey, if you're going to drag him down, I'm going to make you feel it at the same time.
I'm coming with you. Yeah.
You made this choice. I'm just capitalizing it.
That's about 600 pounds of man falling on TJ Watt right there.
Let's see what we got on this one up against. I think it's Ogunjobi there. 97.
Chicago Bears should have been.
No, 97 might still be Hayward. I think Ogunjobi's 99. Oh, so this one I thought he was a little slow to get back to the right side here off of helping Creed Humphrey and inside to helping Taylor.
Yeah, I think part of the issue too, though, here
Taylor gets really wide and deep there too. I mean,
he does, and we also don't know what the protection is.
Yeah.
So this might be a case where Trey Smith is your slide guy. And because you see it, he's keeping his eyes on the backer
Mhm.
initially. I don't think that's necessarily his responsibility, but
He's even
I
looking
applaud
at
him.
number 6 or 8 up there too. Like,
Yeah.
you can see he's looking at 50, and then
I
there was a
applaud him
point
for
there.
feeling the pressure coming from Watt and seeing color and trying to help make something out of nothing.
Yeah,
And still gets back and gets a hand on his
Yeah.
original man. I mean, it's it's not pretty. It's a little bit of a spin cycle kind of block, but you get a big play on the other end of it too, because they're able to keep Mahomes clean long enough to get to Watson on the deep go route.
yeah. I did knock him on that play, but I mean, that one was I was questioning it, as I'm
Sure.
writing it down, but I have a question on it.
Screen. Oh, yeah, same.
Yeah, he just
Athlete. Big man trying to get out of the way.
So I knocked him on this. I don't remember if it was the angle that I thought could have been better. I think it was his hesitation, and maybe it was selling it, but right about here, it just felt like I didn't like the way that he's playing that with 97. I thought that
Fair.
was light, and I thought he was slow to get out here. Now, granted, it looks like he's supposed to be protecting backside first, but I thought he could have reached that safety corner, whatever it is there, had he, had a little more urgency off the screen, and he ends up taking a blow because of it. There was a little bit of some awareness stuff that I saw on his tape that made me pause a little. And part of the reason why I say I don't think he's a finished product, and I think he can get better still.
Absolutely. Let's remind people, Q, he was a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
He wasn't polished coming out of college. This isn't a guy like Darnell Wright, who was a top 10 selection in the NFL draft. He was a guy who's come from adversity and turned himself into a very nice pro, and now a Pro Bowler here in 2024. I agree with you. I think there is still a lot of ability for him to grow. I believe he's only 25 years old right now. I got the number up in front of me. Yeah, he's 25 right now. He'll be 26 at the start of next season. Like, that is absolutely an offensive lineman that has room for development. I will say, I'll give him a little bit of leniency on that play of getting to the safety, because not everybody's Minka Fitzpatrick, and it's hard to get to a guy like Minka. He's an all-pro for a reason, right? So, you applaud the effort there. I agree. I definitely think the awareness aspect, but Q, I'll tell you this. He's got better awareness than probably 80% of the Bears offensive line currently does.
Yeah. Well, and so to your point, he was a 6th round pick. If I remember right, he was projected a 2nd or 3rd. And then
he had an injury, though, right?
A pulmonary emboli or blood clots in his lungs that scared a bunch of teams away from him. You're signing him. You do have to be aware of that and cautious of that, because there is a chance that does. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I can't sit here and say that it might come back, but your medical staff needs to be on top of it, because there is some perceived risk there, whether that's real risk or not. Gotta talk to a doctor.
Do we trust the Bears medical staff to be able to take care of Trey Smith?
I don't trust them very much at all. So that's
I don't either.
Question. But I mean, hey, the guy's played 4 years in the league without a single issue.
Agreed.
It. So that has to be a good sign. But
definitely.
Let's see what we got from him on this rep here.
Bang.
He has that power that you look for. Like I said, there are certain guys when you're watching draft tape where you're saying you see it like that. You're like, that guy's he's got the strength to play. And Trey Smith instantly has that. There's no question about it. He can dominate grown ass men on an NFL football field, and he has those flashes on his tape pretty consistently. It's just it's a matter of making some of the negatives become less consistent.
Agreed. I think what's most impressive too about his strength, and you see it on this play, is he's off balance and still is able to absolutely throw 57.
Yeah. He's got that. I mean, I always think about that as like just core strength, right?
Yeah,
like
he's got that. He's just got that fuck you strength. Like,
right
that's
here,
just what it is.
That is all just midsection rotation of like,
Yeah.
you're going down. Like, and he has it in spades.
Yeah. Because this is nasty. I mean, he
Yeah.
just launches him into the dirt. Like,
Love
there's
it.
very, very few offensive linemen that have that strength in the NFL. Or at least that display it like that on a regular basis, especially with the combined athleticism to be off balance when making said play.
Now this play,
I think Creed Humphrey just gets beat here.
yeah.
I also think Trey Smith's being held.
Yeah,
by
Creed Humphrey totally just gets beat
Benton.
here. And I
Yeah.
did this a few days ago when I broke this stat, or when I put this all together, so I didn't quite remember what was happening. This is why I marked it down, because he felt
Sniper. Yeah.
You go down, you get a negative. It's just kind of as simple as that for me. Like, because the way I see it, if a guy goes down once in a game, it's not going to impact his grade that badly. But if he goes down 4 times, I want it to impact his grade negatively. You know, like
Sure.
I want to see that in the numbers.
Sure. Yeah. And this is a little bit of a sniper shot. I think you could argue that Taylor just is walking on his heels, but and then Taylor falls on top of him to add insult to injury. But just kind of a botched play. But agreed. You know, again, you want a guy to be able to keep his feet. So it can't be all sunshine.
Early hand usage. Oh, on this. So I wanted your thoughts on this one, because they cover this stunt decently, but not the way that I would expect them to, I guess. But a lot of it's because Taylor gets so much depth. I mean, he's just, and maybe that's just game plan against TJ Watt. Like, hey, you're getting depth no matter what, and we'll work with it from there. But I expected that this to be handled a little differently, whether it was Trey Smith getting more depth or whatnot, because it just ends up muddying up that pocket big time.
Yeah, it's tough because, to your point, Juwan Taylor as an offensive lineman is very big in the vertical drop. That's just what he does. That's his game. That's why he has the goofy ass stance that people giggle about. Like in the first game,
pigeon-toed.
Yeah, the pigeon toed. I would know. I had a weird pigeon toed stance like that too when I was in college, especially playing on the left side of the line. If
sometimes you don't catch what we're talking about, we are talking about that and that. Like,
and the reason for that, for a lot of guys, it's a lot easier to push off the outside of your foot and then still be able to keep your shoulders square, because then you can settle and come back in and still have a strong inside leg. So that's why he does that. Yeah. And that's what he does here. I think this is just the case of the game plan against TJ Watt, because he lines up so outside, is to cut him off. So you want to vertical set him. And if he just starts coming inside, Taylor does a perfect job. You just wash him down the line. It just coincidentally, TJ Watt does a nice job of taking out both Trey Smith's hip and Creed Humphrey's hip. And that, I think, in turn is what muddies the pocket. So wouldn't necessarily blame Smith for anything here, because he's impacted. But, I mean, he still gets back to Benton and still lays a hand on him. And, I mean, they largely kept Mahomes clean on the play. I know this ends up becoming it's a pick end up for clean on this play. I remember watching this in live action when it happened. But punish jumpers. Got to punish jumpers, Q. And they don't do it. Got to punish jumpers, and that's why.
I just saw that Brandon Thorne's coming out with a shirt that says that, and I'm 100% buying.
Punish jumpers.
Yeah.
Send me the link. I want one too.
little plug for Brandon Thorne there.
I love Brandon Thorne. If you're a sicko and like O-line content, Brandon Thorne is a must follow.
Hey man, he commented on my Jake Curran breakdown a few weeks ago, so I was very proud of that.
Hell yeah. We should. That's a dude we should get on this show. That would be a lot of fun.
Love that. Yeah, this one I love the early hands and the power behind those hands. Like, it's not, the power isn't necessarily the punch here, but it's the torque, the toss. That's just I like it.
It's the early hands and it's the aggressive hands. That's what you gotta love there. Because again, you can throw your hands and get your hands on a guy and make a quality block. But it's the little extra level of nasty that's going to beat guys up over the course of a game. If anybody would know it, I have a terrible tendency, if you play against me in Turkey Bowl, if you're a D lineman, you are going to leave Turkey Bowl with bruises here because I punch people, no matter you wear shoulder pads or not. Same thing goes here, man. Right? Like, these guys are going to feel that over the course of a 60-minute game.
So I heard a story on the O-line committee podcast the other day where it was like, it's a former offensive lineman, and he said he was in the gym, and there's a guy who always talks to him in the gym. He's like, I think I can get around you. Like, I think I can do it. And like, he's like, okay, give it a try. And so he sets, and then he's like, I don't even realize, because I've been doing it for so long, that like I have to remember sometimes my hands are weapons. Like,
oh yeah,
I just instinctually I punched the shit out of this guy in his shoulder, and he was like shocked by it, and I was just like, shit, I shouldn't have done this. Like, I just didn't even think about that. Like, yeah, those hands are weapons, and the ability to use them like that does matter.
Absolutely matters, and that's why guys that have violent hands and know how to punch. That's why Matt Pryor gets away with so much shit that he does. Is because of the violence in his punch. Like, if you have a violent punch, it can make up for a lot of deficiencies. Now, it's not going to fix everything. It's not going to make you a perfect offensive lineman. But if you are maybe a little slower off the ball, or maybe you do take bad angles at times, or maybe you have a tendency of, if a guy does get into you, you get worked a little bit. Well, if you can get to him early and often with those aggressive punches, you're probably going to win the rep more often than not.
Right. Now, this one, again, I thought he got worked by the backer a little here. Like, this was fine to me. Like, he got his guy to Creed Humphrey cleanly. I liked that, but then he gets a bit of a hold there, has to let go, and just the run plays dead on arrival.
Yeah, I feel like that was just kind of an ugly play concept. Again, I think it's nice to see even a good offensive line still struggles in football games. I think
they all do.
They all do. Oh, you and I know that, Q, but to everybody else, the great offensive lines don't struggle in games, which is a total load of horseshit. Every offensive lineman's going to have a struggle. I just don't, admittedly, I don't love the way they block this. But again, first level first, it's a good pass off, and he tries to get to his guy. In fairness, Watt is blowing up the play too on Taylor. Like, there's a lot of just muddy chaos. Joe Thuney's just looking
and
like
at the very least, I will say, he tries to define a run lane here.
Oh, absolutely.
He tries to clear the guy out to give that inside run lane and say, you can get there. Like, and I will respect anytime an offensive lineman tries to define a run lane for their runner.
Definitely. Yeah. Anytime a guy is going out of his way to give that, that's when you'll take that 10 times out of 10.
So this is on Benton again, and he just
no chance. And it's those punches, man. It's those punches up front, and you see it immediately. And I kind of like what Trey Smith does. Trey Smith does, again, this is not the technical term for it, but this is how I refer to it as. I call it the machine gun hands, where it's boom, boom. And it's not necessarily a two-handed punch at the same time. It's kind of almost like a patty cake punch, where you bring that first one and that kind of shocks them, and then you get him with that second one, and that's when you can lock in and engage and really control guys. And that's what you see him do here against Benton.
We got him against Benton again. So he's pulling out here.
Oh yeah.
Ron, I thought of you when I pulled this one.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, because you know exactly what I'm going to say. Well, he is technically hitting correctly. He is aiming with his left shoulder. So pull left, hit left. He's trying to get there. It's just Highsmith knows to submarine him and get lower. And that's where, and sometimes in these cases where if I was an O-line coach, if you see a guy getting low like that, you are absolutely welcome to go dive and submarine at his knees because it's completely legal.
Quick shout out to Elliot. Stick around. We got Dalman tape coming out.
We do have Dalman tape.
So we got you covered on that.
War is coming. I'm glad you thought of me though, Q. That means that we've done enough of these shows and my stupid little shticks are starting to stick.
Yeah. I loved how he defines this run lane again. I don't remember who 57 is. Is that Hayward?
No, 97 is Hayward. I can get you a number here so we're not just.
But that right hand to just be able to shuck him out of the run lane and define it. And what we mean by define it is really just make it an easy read for the running back of like, hey, just follow our butts. Like we are in a line. This is the spot for you.
Hold on to your butts. Yeah, exactly. That would be Montavious Adams. He is an 8th-year defensive tackle out of Auburn.
Yeah, former second-round pick, I believe.
I can let you know here in a hot motherfucking second. He was a Green Bay Packer, 4 years as a Green Bay Packer, played 1 year in New Orleans, has been in Pittsburgh since 2021. Only played 5 games in his first year in Pittsburgh, but since then has played at least double figures.
And Elliot, you can find me on Twitter at Buckus Most of the season, I'll put out every week a review of every Bears offensive lineman. I write an article over at ontapsportsnet.com where I do weekly breakdowns of the entire Bears offensive line. And you can find Ron at Loose on Tap on X.
That's where you can find me. I need to start doing some more O-line stuff, Q. I think I'm just going to keep replying to all of your stuff because your stuff is so good.
Well, thank you. Right
Makes
here,
it
he just
easier.
gets a little knocked out of line there. I didn't like sometimes I'll give a guy a negative just if I don't like the
Process.
It just doesn't feel like they're committed to something and they're getting a little worked because of it, even if it doesn't necessarily impact the play. I felt like he got worked here, and I couldn't look past that for an okay grade. It was the play might not have been impacted by him, but I didn't feel like he got a clean block on anybody, and he probably should have.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like especially too once you're inside the red zone, like as an O-line coach, like I want you to sell out on this block. Even if you miss, I'd rather you aggressively miss than, like you said, look like you're not committed to doing something. Because he gets kind of high here. He gets his hat to the right spot, but then, like you said, there's really not a lot of movement, and then he kind of runs around the block. I'd rather him just literally just shove his face mask into this guy's armpit and just try to drive him out the hole. Is what I would rather see in that
Something
situation.
we see Darnell Wright and Matt Pryor do a lot. Like,
they're
not sound, but they're just driving the hell out of
it. Yeah, but when you're inside the 5, you can get away with that. As long as you're aggressive and you try to move people, got to be a road grader. And that's the time to do it, especially in the red zone. You got to be a road grader.
This one just very clean, very nice. I thought that
beautiful.
That initial punch from him really gave a nice stun here. And then he's just able to continue in the rep and stay on balance, show off his anchor, his power. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I think too what's also impressive with it, like you said, Q, is showing off the anchor. You see him get walked back a little bit, but then he quickly recollects himself inside of his base. And then is just able to more or less just you've won as an offensive lineman when the D lineman's just like looking around you and trying not even to engage with you. That's when you know you won the rep.
And does this look like Caleb Williams, or does this look like Caleb Williams?
Greased up that guy. You will be very, very proud of this. Have seen a lot of my buddies in the last day now or so after the holidays here. And we were watching a game and the quarterback was running around. I was like, he looks like greased up deaf guy. And they all started laughing. And I was like, it's funny because go watch Caleb Williams now and think of greased up deaf guy. And you're never going to look at it the same. And they were all like, "You're son of a bitch, you're right." And I'm like, that's cute. That's cute. And I can't unsee it now. So now everybody's going to not be able to.
I think I did hear it from maybe it was Nate Tice or something who posted it. That feels like a Nate Tice thing to post. But I saw it somewhere and I was like, I just latched onto it. I'm like, it's perfect.
It is perfect. It really is perfect.
So you bring a blitzer at Trey Smith, he's gonna wreck you.
Yeah.
Linebacker against him is just not a fair fight. And
once again,
it's something every time I saw it, it was like, okay, he's wrecking that guy.
And once again, too, defining the run lane.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing to see him consistently define the run lane. And in this case, Pacheco follows him. He says, okay, I see where I need to go. I'm going to follow you, and we're going to see what happens.
And then one thing, this one, TJ Watt gives him the business. I think that was TJ. Maybe it might have been Highsmith, but he gives him the business. He keeps his feet, though. A lot of guys are on the ground from that, but I had to give him a negative here on this just for being a little late with his head and getting shocked by it.
Woo! I've had that happen to me before. That's not fun.
The ear hole? Yeah, no.
The ear hole, yeah. The ear hole. Because, like, usually the O-linemen are the ones doing the ear holing. Mm-hmm. So when you get ear holed, it's like, oh, what the hell, man?
That was a little payback for the earlier rep of just landing on him.
Yeah.
Didn't love his hands were, I don't know if they were predictable here or what, just missed, but the the defensive lineman was, I think that's Ogunjobi, was just
That's Ogunjobi, yeah.
flying around him, and then he's just kind of stuck in no man's land.
Yeah, and at least he goes at the second level and tries to get up there. I mean, a really nice job by Kareem Hunt just to avoid Ogunjobi altogether, because it's a really tough block for Creed Humphrey. But yeah, I agree. I think in that instance, it looks like his hands might have missed. I don't think he was expecting Ogunjobi to cross his face like that.
Yeah, to fly a gap back.
Yeah, and sometimes that'll happen. So, he just kind of misfires. I think you would have maybe wished him to commit a little bit more to Ogunjobi initially, just to let Creed get there and get maybe a little bit more substance on him, especially because as you watch the linebacker, I mean, he doesn't scrape very hard. He doesn't come hard downhill.
Yeah.
He's scraping laterally. He's trying to read where Kareem Hunt's going. Still gets into the right space. And again, that being a great example of your running back setting up his blocks for himself. Kareem Hunt does a great job doing that in that situation. And, ultimately Trey Smith makes a nice block at the end. But I agree with you. I think just that initial kind of punch was kind of fugly.
He did have some nice stuff down the stretch like this one, just catching the spin, saying, "You're not going anywhere, pal. I got you in a headlock here. Like you're done." I loved that rep, and the flag was not on him.
No,
I checked that before I put this in here.
Right?
I put it in here, and then I saw the flag come out, and I was like, I got to make sure this isn't on him, because I can't be praising him for a penalty he got flagged on. You might have been able to get flagged on it, but let's be honest, that's half the blocking plays we watch. So
100%. There's no better feeling as an offensive lineman than catching a D lineman mid-spin. There really isn't, because they're just defenseless at that point.
And this one just
finding
drives
the run
57 right out of there.
Yeah.
Again, like his run blocking was really up and down, but like the flashes are loud and they're very nice. So I'm
agreed.
I really you're gonna have to pay this guy a lot. Like you're talking 100%. Like 5 years, $100 million, because that's what the top of the guard market is, and I think he's gonna make top of the guard market. Again, here we see him just giving the business to the Steelers nose tackle.
Things you always love to see.
Yeah. But I mean, you're probably talking in the range of like Chris Lindstrom, 5 years, $103 million, Robert Hunt, 5 years, $100 million. Like Sam Cosme's at 5 years, 70, or maybe 4 years, 74. So a similar AAV there.
Sure.
But you're talking some serious money on this guy.
I mean, you can make the argument too. I mean, Joe Thuney's making 26 a year. Nelson's 25 a year. I mean, Robert Hunt's making 20-something a year as a guard. Jonah Jackson's making 20-something a year as a guard. Dickerson. I mean, you're looking at probably cap hit wise. I mean, Zach Martin's the third highest cap hit guard for 2024 at $15.5 million. I think you're looking at Trey Smith probably somewhere in the neighborhood. And it probably would be a backloaded deal as well, just because that's how the cap's going to clear out for the Bears. You're probably looking, like you said, probably an AAV of something around about $20 million. Probably backloaded, of course. So probably year one, maybe he makes like 12, 13. And then some, in some of those later years, he's probably making like Robert Hunt money, which is like, 27.5 mil.
And probably somewhere in the range of like 30 mil signing bonus. So like he's getting a big chunk of change up front on that too. Maybe even 40. Like Robert Hunt was at 44 mil fully guaranteed last year. So, you're talking some serious money on him. And that does make me a little nervous when I'm talking about a guy who's not a finished product. But ultimately, I mean, he's the best free agent out there. If you want the best free agent out there, you go get him. And I think the Bears should go get it. Like, go make sure they get this guy.
Definitely. He's on the short list of like, absolutely no question. If you can get him to come to Chicago, go get him to come to Chicago.
Yeah.
And again, the beauty of the NFL, it's one of the few leagues where free agency happens before the draft. If you're able to get Trey Smith and maybe you get another offensive lineman, then you probably feel a little better about, hey, maybe we'll use in one of our top 2 picks to get another offensive lineman and really bolster this position. And then from there, though, you can go and get another edge rusher, or you can go get a running back, or you can go get another position of need across this team if you're able to get a couple of these guys in free agency when you utilize your money that you're going to have to spend.
Yeah, and so now we'll look at the top center on the market, Atlanta Falcons, Drew Dalman, former 4th-round pick. I believe this is his 4th year in the league. And I'm curious to see if Atlanta makes it a point to bring him back or not, because they do have a lot of money on number 63 here at right guard, Chris Lindstrom, early second round draft pick on number 65, Matt Bergeron, and they've already paid both their offensive tackles. So there might be in a position where they can't just commit that much money to the O-line. We'll see. But Lindstrom is probably going to be getting a pretty nice payday this period, just because he's the top center in the league, and it really shows in his run blocking, or the top available center in the league.
Yeah, for Dalman here. And this is a nice play. I mean, it's a cue like you and I have talked about previously on some of these film room shows. Center in the NFL is just, it's not, they're asked to do so many things. These guys are not built like Olin Kreutz of yesteryear, or, or even a Roberto Garza of yesteryear. These guys have to be somewhat athletic. They're probably a little bit smaller than people would wish they were. So a good center is A, super rare, and B, to your point, Q, like they're not going to be perfect, but it's probably an upgrade over a Coleman Shelton at this point. But does a center justify, however much money? Because to your point, the really good and great centers in the league, a lot of those guys were drafted by their teams, right? Creed Humphrey, for example, by the Kansas City Chiefs. So sometimes you have to go and get those guys via the draft, but when one of them comes around like this, in a guy like Dalman, you certainly at least have to look into it and think about it and weigh the options of whether or not that's a position you want to commit some money to.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, there were only a handful of centers in the league that I'd trust to play offensive guard. Creed Humphrey, Frank Ragnow, Juice Scruggs to an extent, and Jackson Powers Johnson. Like those are the only four guys I think have the feet and the power to play offensive guard in the league. Most other guys, they have one or the other.
Right.
And he definitely fits in has the feet, doesn't have the power. Like, and he plays with good technique, and that helps, but he does fall into the same category as a Coleman Shelton of like, he's gonna be overpowered at times, but what can he make up for you in other ways?
Definitely. And that was a great reach block.
This one is even better. Like, I love this. That swivel of hips is just gorgeous.
Yeah, and that's perfect. I mean, that's the exact type of blocks you're looking for out of your center, right? I mean, there's a reason that a lot of centers don't pull in the league, and it's just because if they are pulling, right, it's on like a screen or something like that. You get them involved that way. But I mean, this is perfect. He doesn't have to drive the guy downfield, especially if you're running an outside zone like this. Just get in the run lane and hook the guy, and this is between him and Lindstrom. And again, I mean, he's got a legit guard playing next to him, which certainly helps.
All pro.
But this is a really nice block from Dalman here.
Yeah. That's one thing I can't understand. Like, that's something that makes me nervous about the potential of giving Dalman big money. Chris Lindstrom has 97 knocked way off balance. Like, Chris Lindstrom has done a lot of the work here. Absolutely. Dalman does his job very well, but how much of that is a result of Lindstrom knocking the crap out of him? That's where I start to get questions about giving big money to Drew Dalman, which I'm not saying you shouldn't do. I'm just saying I think it's a legitimate question.
Yeah, it's definitely an internal argument that needs to be had in that war room of, is this a guy we're ready to commit money to in that aspect?
And again, here you see Bergeron really riding that block down and getting it set up in a position for Lindstrom to take it over. I like what Lindstrom does a lot. It just muddies the water for me of like, Lindstrom gets pushed into the run lane. Once he does get in there, that's where I start to have some more questions again. Like, if he doesn't have Matt Bergeron and Chris Lindstrom flanking him, how does he look? Maybe he looks fine. Maybe the Bears have better guards than that. Maybe they have equal guards to that next year, and it's not a big deal. But that the dollar amount is going to be big for me when it comes to Drew Dalman.
100%. I think you want Lindstrom because I think you keep calling Dalman Lindstrom. I think your subconscious is telling you we need Chris Lindstrom in the building.
That might be true.
That might be
Chris Lindstrom in the building.
Yeah, he would look great. But yeah, you're right. I mean, on that last block, like that's a perfect example. You watch him get overpowered by a really good. Again, these are good D tackles that fill.
And that's probably Jalen Carter he's going against. So that's no small job, but
yeah.
There are dudes.
I think Carter's the backside because I think Carter wears
that's
98.
Jordan Davis.
So that's Jordan Davis, which is just as big of a challenge, if not bigger, because Davis is just physically bigger. You know, that's a hard assignment to have as a center, and in this case, I mean, he gets worked. I mean, it's a good block initially, but right to your point, once he's on his own, I mean, Jordan Davis gives him the business.
Yeah. All right, let's see what we got up next here. There are a lot of outside zone runs in this because Atlanta runs a lot of outside zone, and he's an ideal outside zone center. That's
sure is
what he thrives at. Again, you see Lindstrom helping a lot there, but Dalman does a good job.
Yep. And again, to your point, Q, you've talked about it time and time again. You conclude it in every one of your offensive line analysis articles. It's a unit, right? Like these guys work together. You need to be able to combo block. You still need a center that understands body positioning and where he needs to be, and can he get to his spot? Yeah, it helps when he's got Chris Lindstrom helping push on Jalen Carter here, but he's able to ride. He knows exactly where he needs to be. He knows when Lindstrom is starting to peel off to the linebacker, and when that happens, he's able to head adjust, and he does a nice job getting in front of Carter here. And then it's just a really nice play by Algier to see that backside run lane where, knowing that Carter is probably not going to be able to make that play, obviously it's another Eagle making the tackle, but that's really well done.
And then Darren, no Alaric Jackson in this one. We got some Kevin Zeitler coming up after this, but we only got the 3 guys today. Maybe we'll get some Alaric Jackson in the future, but we will see about that. And to your point, Ron, I think that's something Dalman does an excellent job of, is understanding of space, angles, body position, and flexibility to get into those body positions that he needs to be in.
Yeah, and he's still a big guy. I mean, 6'3", 305 is pretty legitimate for an NFL center. I mean, Coleman Shelton is not 300 pounds, for example. So, he still has some good size to him. He's still going to be able to move some guys. This is just one of those games where you're playing probably 2 of the best defensive tackles in football, in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. So it's not an easy test, but I think that further highlights why he's probably going to get big money on this market, because he has shown those flashes, and he's shown that if he's playing with an at least strong guard next to him, he's going to be able to do a lot of good things in your offense.
So the results here weren't great, but I still gave him a plus on this one. I really liked the way he played this rep. I liked how wide he was able to get Carter here with that push. Hands a little high, but when you get that much push, I'm not going to complain. And then I think he does a nice job cutting off 17 here. The run kind of got delayed on him, got a little slow, and he ends up kind of in no man's land, but I can't put that on him. Like that's what happened behind him.
Jordan Davis is making the play against Bergeron really in this instance, but I agree with you. I think really good hand placement. Like you said, it might be a little bit high. It's more on the rib than it is on the hip, but he still gets that movement as if he's pushing along Carter's hip. Lindstrom's able to head adjust as well and get in front of Carter. And then to your point, he's kind of just in no man's land because Nakobe Dean's just kind of sitting there and trying to read the play and figure out what to do. You maybe would wish that he'd be a little more aggressive, but again, at the end of the day, I agree. I don't really fault him for anything on this play. The first mentality on that highlight is sensational from Dalman.
Yeah. Now let's see how this one goes. Up against Vance Morrow, Jomo, and he just very nicely done. And one thing I noticed in his tape that I really like, he's very sticky. This guy's got grip strength for days, and that's something I really liked. And that really stood out to me of like, he might get overpowered at times, but good luck getting him unlatched from you because he has vice grips.
Yeah, and this is a really nice play. Run him, and he's got him just enough backside to force him to almost kind of overcommit to the play. And then again, when you have an athlete like Bijan Robinson in the backfield, that certainly helps as well, setting up blocks for himself.
And again, that flag was not on him.
No holds.
This is what I was talking about with the grip strength. He's getting whipped around here, but like he's like a fly flying around him. That's just annoying as hell. Like you can't get rid of him.
Hey, I mean, the greatest of bull riders get flipped around and moved around. But as
Right.
long as you hang on and you stay on the bull, you're good. And that's what happens here.
Hey,
I mean,
it's a great rep from him. Like, I mean,
it is a great
he's
rep.
getting whipped
And
around a little bit. He's doing his job at a high level.
And I think to add on to that too, he's getting whipped around. But this is a drill that is practiced for offensive linemen. Like you have a teammate who is just push, rip, pull you, and it's all about that grip strength and being able to walk and mirror while you're being whipped around. And that's what he does here. He's getting whipped around, but he's able to swivel the hips. He's able to sink into his anchor. He's able to reposition his body and get back in front of his target and not get caught in no man's land with a hand out here and on a hold. That's just as much of a skill as it is kind of getting on the bull and getting whipped around here. Again, good rep. And again, it's the technique. I think he's got a far better anchor than, for example, like a Coleman Shelton.
Mm-hmm.
You might not always see it, but I mean, that is a really good rep too, because this is also an instance where he's very clearly trustable as a solo block.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is no, hey,
at
we
least
got to go
against
help
a 3-tech like Moro Ojomo. Like it's
exactly. Like, hey, we trust you to be able to handle this, especially on a passing down, right? This is a passing down.
Yeah.
You can tell by the personnel the Eagles are trotting out there. It's not Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. You can trust him one-on-one against a smaller defensive tackle. That's exactly what happens here. And that's great because then you were able to free up guys like Lindstrom and guys like Bergeron to go help then on your tackles if need be. And, I mean, Kirk's got all day to throw the football and delivers a really nice throw to Ray McLeod there over the middle.
Oh, good name pull. I was just wondering who that was.
34. He wears a really weird number for Atlanta. It's kind of fun.
Wonder if you grew up a Walter Payton fan.
Maybe.
Again, this is nice. It's not, he doesn't,
Yeah.
I just like the angle that he gets here and his understanding of space. I like his hand placement. He's just able to move the guy where he wants to be. I think that Jalen Carter is going to beat guys sometimes. But I liked the process here from Lindstrom a lot. Like I thought technically I could say he might have been beat there if Jalen Carter gets that grip. But the process is very clean here to me, and I give a good rep here, even though it was that close, just because the process was right in my mind.
And Dalman knows there is no help coming. He knows that Bergeron is going up to the next level. He knows he's one-on-one with Carter in this rep, and because of that, he knows, okay, I got to hook this guy or I got to run him. And as soon as your D tackle starts to kind of leak behind you like that, you can turn to the play and just try to ride him backwards. And that's exactly what it is here. You see the hand on the hip. You see him just try to ride Carter just away from Bijan. Just give your running back a chance to make a play. And I mean, the whole happens. You see it all the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good hands from Dalman. And it's the hands that save him, because if he doesn't have those hands, I bet you Jalen Carter gets more of a paw on Bijan in this play. And instead of almost 10-yard gain, or probably actually more now than 10-yard gain, that might have been a negative play.
Yeah. Jordan Davis just overpowers him on this one. And this is where I was saying, he is in the Coleman Shelton category, right?
Sure.
He's not going to take on Jordan Davis one-on-one very successfully very often.
I mean, in fairness, I don't think there's a lot of offensive linemen in the NFL that are going to say Jordan Davis on one-on-one very often and be uber successful.
Right.
I mean, this is
where I was saying earlier, he's not Creed Humphrey. He's not Frank Ragnow, where they can play power on power. Yeah. That's not his game. So if we're talking about Ben Johnson, who wants to run such a multiple run scheme that you need a power center, I'm not sure Dalman fits. But if we're willing to get more outside zone, more horizontal run game, Dalman could be a great fit. It's just a question of what the next Bears head coach really wants to do with the offense.
And that might be a great example, Q, of then maybe that's where they target in the draft. Maybe a center is a priority for the Bears. Maybe that's a guy that right now they don't have a third-round pick. Obviously, they could get a third-round pick if Ian Cunningham gets hired because of the new rules that have been in place with hires and things like that in the NFL. But maybe you do trade back into the third round, for example, or pardon me, you have a third-round pick. Maybe they trade into the fourth round or something with one of those fives. If they do really like a center that's there, that maybe, like you said, right, if it is a Ben Johnson, plays with more of that power scheme. So agree with you, right? I think right now we're all kind of wondering what if. I think in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have a better idea of, is Dalman a realistic target for the Bears, given who their head coaching hire is and potentially who their OC is? Because, right, we know Ben Johnson comes in, he's the play caller, but if a Mike Vrabel or a Brian Flores comes in, they have an OC they need to pick, and that's going to probably generate a lot of discussion too then on what the Bears want to do offensively.
So on this, I did like his recovery here to get back at, like, recognize 19 and say, okay, I got to get back here. But this is where, like, the anchor, he's not in a great position, and his inability to like be like Trey Smith, we were saying, to generate that power from an awkward position is just not really there, and he gets blocked. But again, it's the style of center you got. You have one or two options most of the time in the league.
Yeah, and I really like, especially too, because I believe that's Sweat that he's going against. I think Sweat wears 19 for the Eagles. I mean, that's a top-notch pass rusher too, coming on a loop like that. Being able to walk back into him, obviously gets walked back a little bit, but overall, though, you like the positioning that he takes. You can see the fight. It's not just getting absolutely walked. He's getting into his anchor. You know, he's trying to fight the hand placement. Again, I think, like you said, Q, the process here is good. Sure, maybe the result's not exactly what you want, but you'll take good process day in and day out, because more often than not, that's going to result in good reps.
Yeah. And then, Ron, we got a question from Darren here, and no dumb questions. Oh, there's plenty of questions about O-line that no one ever asks. So anyone asking an O-line question is always a good question.
Agreed.
I know a good right tackle may not ever be a decent left tackle, but can a quality left tackle have a hard time playing the right side?
Yes, absolutely. Not every guy is good at playing both sides of the field. When you have guys that can play both sides of the field, i.e. a Tristan Wirfs, who went from right tackle to left tackle for the Bucs, that's rare. Those guys are not always, it's not like, oh, you play tackle so you can play both sides. No. A lot of times it's not that way. A lot of times it is, you're either a right tackle or you're a left tackle. That's why it's so hard to find a good swing tackle, because it's hard to play both sides. It was something that I admittedly took pride in when I played. I played both sides of the line at all positions. I played both guards, both tackles. I played center. Not a lot of guys can do that, because some of it is knowing the playbook really well. And some of it is just sometimes you're more comfortable. I was always more comfortable in a right side drop as a right tackle than I was in a left side drop as a left tackle. And, was I better at one or the other? Probably not. I was probably equivalent at each. But there's absolutely instances where guys, if you were to take, hypothetically speaking, Braxton Jones and put him on the right side, I bet you he would not be nearly what he is. I think Darnell Wright would be the same way.
So I will say, one thing with this question that I want to point out, I think a right tackle is just as likely to move to the left side as a left to the right side. Like, I think
Sure.
You're talking the same thing. It's like Darnell Wright, I think, is the best tackle on the Bears. I think
Definitely.
Darnell Wright he played left tackle before. He played left tackle in college and then moved to he played, or in high school, but stayed at right in college. So he has that muscle memory in him, but he was never as good on the left side. I think he did play some college on the left side and wasn't as good there. So some guys can do it more easily than others. Some guys experience, like Zach Tom with the Packers. Zach Tom, coming out of college, played every position on the O-line. Something that, I think that's something I value when I look at draft prospects. What have they played? What are they comfortable doing? Where can you plug them in and just say he'll be okay? Like, I do think that is something that I put value on. And like, Braxton has only played left tackle since the start of college. I'm not sure he's a guy you want to move to the right side.
Yeah. And not to say that there aren't tackles like what Tristan Wirfs did, right? Where he was a right tackle for a long time and then in the off season made the move to left. Then you get those reps in during camp and things like that. Like, a truly athletic tackle, if he's good enough, will be able to play both sides. But if you're just saying, like, in the middle of the game, if you flip the guy to the other side, there's a very good chance he's not going to be as good, because, like you said, Q, it is that muscle memory when you play one side versus another, because the technique is flipped. Like your left tackle technique is the same as the right tackle technique, but obviously it's opposites. And sometimes that will trip guys up mentally as they go into get ready for a block.
There's the famous saying, it's wiping your ass with the other hand. Like, if you're not used to using your left hand, it gets real weird real fast.
It does get real weird real fast. Agreed. It does.
All right, this one, he gets a little surprised by the stunt from Ojomo here and just knocked out of the play, essentially. Like, they run it beautifully on him and just gets beat. And like I said, I just graded the positive and negative plays, included both, and this one was one of the negatives.
Nice ball by Kirko Chains to hit our boy Darnell Mooney.
This play is awesome. Just watch the rest of it.
That's our sweet prince.
I know. I'm so sad he's gone.
I know. Good for Darnell though. He's getting paid a lot of money and actually getting used quite a bit in Atlanta, so it's nice to see.
Interesting comment here. I didn't realize John Tate played right tackle before he got to the Bears, or was really ever an All-Pro. I love John Tate. That was the guy I looked up to on those Bears teams. I was like, I want to play O-line. I want to be like John Tate. But I didn't realize he was better on the right than the left. I just knew he was awesome on the left for the Bears.
Yeah, he was really good. I do recall that he was really good in Kansas City on the right side. He played a little bit of left in Kansas City too, before coming to Chicago, obviously. But yeah. In 2001, he was predominantly a left tackle. 2002 through 2004, his first year with the Bears, he was actually a right tackle, and then they moved him to the left side out of necessity. And then actually in his last year, I do kind of recall that with the Bears, he did move to the right tackle side in 2008. So,
all right, we got one here where Lindstrom gets a little beat, and Dalman doesn't get any help to the right side. Then from this, it just kind of open. I mean. Really, I think this is a beautiful job by Vic Fangio and the Eagles to rip this thing open and say, okay, we're going to open this lane for whoever is Jordan Davis to come rip over to his left here and have a wide open area to work. And Dalman just can't quite contain him. And that's, again, it's where I say, like, you don't expect your center to be able to do that. No. It's just kind of a spot where you go, yeah, it's going to be a loss there because our center is a finesse center, not a power center. If he was a power center, he might not even be able to do it because there's a lot of lateral movement going on there. And if he could move like that, he wouldn't be playing center.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. And again, it's still a decent rep. I mean, Kirk's able to still get a throwaway, obviously a little bit under duress, but to your point as well, I mean, you got to give flowers to Vic Fangio too, and how he has used this Eagles defense to really kind of take them to another level. I feel like this is the most effective that Eagles defense has been in a long time.
Yeah, it was just a gorgeous. I really liked this blitz from them. I thought it was really well executed. Where like you have the linebacker getting the hand on Dalman to kind of force him upfield or up towards the hashes, and then Davis ripping around because Davis is just a freak of nature.
Yeah, and that hand on the hip like that too also forces Dalman's hips to get out of position, which allows an easier path for Davis coming on the backside like that. So, like you said, it's clearly designed that way to help free up a guy like Jordan Davis. There's a reason. Not every blitz has the intention of always finding home. Sometimes they're to set up other things on the rush.
That blitzer's job is to fly by Lindstrom and get those hands on Dalman. This is a blitz designed to get one of Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis home.
Yep, and damn near does.
This one was nice from him. I liked that.
That's really
aggressive
nice.
Hands and the just maintaining that position. Again, a little help from Lindstrom here, but like I liked this rep from him. It just seemed he attacked the player. And they always say what pass pro is not passive. This is a rep that I thought represented that pretty well.
Be the aggressor. I also like the head on a swivel too, always looking to help. Just overall good movement, good aggression. You love him following the play as well. That's just a football guy. It's a good rep from Dalman.
This is another one where I like those quick hands.
Punish the jumper.
Like see him punish the jumper a little more, but I'll take this rep over and over when he's getting that early punch in and maintaining good leverage, good bend at the point of attack. and just washing it. They was washing it downfield for the most part.
Q, we got a fun question here in the comment section. This is from our boy Bear Truth 9 here. He says, "Why don't you see more guards transition to center?"
I wish I had a good answer for this that wasn't just money. Guards get paid more.
Some of it is also very much skill set. I will say center is a very different position than guard. I know it probably doesn't sound like it is, but a lot of people also need to remember center is also a very intellectual position on the offensive line. In most offenses, especially at the NFL level, the center is aiding and calling the protection.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, and for anybody that wants to hear more like football nerdyism, another great person to listen to is Cam Newton. And the way he talks through like the pre-snap and everything like that, he might identify the mic knowing where he wants the pro to go, but then it's on the center to help identify, okay, we're working here. You two got this stack. You two got this stack. We're working this way. You're lock on that side. Here, I'm slide. That's all a part of what the center does. So for a lot of guys, like that's why the whole rookie center narrative is like very taboo, because there's a lot of intellectual need from the center position at the NFL level. I think that's some of it. And some guys too, if you're nasty, like if you are a Quentin Nelson level nasty, you are better suited to play guard because it's a position that allows you to use that nastiness more tactically, where I think at center, you don't get to use that as much. Jason Kelsey's a perfect example. When's the last time you saw Jason Kelsey have tons of those big, blowing guys up blocks? He's getting in good position and he's running with guys because he was an athlete, but he was nasty, but he wasn't the same level of nasty as like a Quentin Nelson is, for example.
Yeah.
So that could be why some of it is. But agree with you, Q, money is a huge reason.
To another degree as well. Matt Bergeron, college offensive tackle.
Yep.
Chris Lindstrom, college guard who played some offensive tackle. Mm-hmm. So many guards in the NFL. We look at the Bears, Tevin Jenkins, Matt Pryor,
former
both offensive tackles.
Mm-hmm.
Most guards in the NFL were offensive tackles in college because most of the best linemen in the country
play tackle.
And then when they get to the NFL, they realize they can't play tackle there and they kick inside to guard.
Mm-hmm.
Because their skill set makes more sense for guard at the NFL level because their feet aren't as fast. They don't play as well on the island. They can't do the hardest of the hard well. So they transition into guard where their power plays better. So those guys are usually a bit slower feet, more power players.
Definitely.
The question then becomes, well, can you see college guards kick inside to center? But a lot of college guards are about equal to some of the centers who make the league. I would say from a blocking standpoint, from a power standpoint, or they're just too slow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like there are so many guys in the draft every year who it's like, man, this guy is a brick shit house, right? Like he is strong as hell. No one can get through him, but he can't move his feet. And it's like, at that point, you're just talking the power centers in the league. You're talking about Bradley Bozeman, right? Like that's what Bradley Bozeman is. He can't move, but he can snap. And then you're talking about at center, you want guys who have snapped the football their whole life. And like you said, thought through the process of calling out the blocking assignments, getting everyone in line, taking on that leadership role on the offensive line their whole life. I think that's, to your point, a big part of why you don't see more guys transition to center.
As somebody who struggled with shotgun snapping when I first did it, that's 100% real. Like, everybody thinks snapping a football is super easy. It's not as easy as you think it is, especially when you have a 300-pound defensive
tried
tackle
to figure it out for 8 years.
Right? Yeah, never did. Right, and never did.
Cody was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone wants to crap on Cody for his last year with the Bears. He was really good for 7 years before that. Like let's not get our words mixed up here. But he never got the snapping completely down.
No, he always, even mildly, always struggled with the snapping.
This one here, they run a stun at him, and again, he's just a little slow to get that anchor down. This is where I said, like, there's some Coleman Shelton in here of like he doesn't get obliterated as much as Shelton, but it's you can see the shades of it where if he's not in a perfect position to pick up that stunt, he's getting walked. Like, So it would be an upgrade over Shelton without a doubt. But
then you have to
see some
quantify
similar issues.
Yeah, then you have to quantify is what the dollar value is going to cost worth the upgrade over a Coleman Shelton,
Right.
especially if you maybe think there's a center you like in the draft a little bit later, where maybe it's Coleman Shelton for one more year, but you upgrade the guard positions around Shelton that could potentially help him in the long term with a guy like a Trey Smith or somebody who we're going to talk about here a little bit after here in the show, and Kevin Zeitler.
And then this one, it's not punish jumpers, but limit jumpers at least. I like this.
You'll take that too. Yeah.
You're just hooking onto and saying you're not getting up there to block it. Like that's something with Caleb Williams, a quarterback, that I really care about.
Yeah.
I want to see you, if you're not punishing jumpers, at least limit them, because that Caleb is a shorter quarterback. Especially with the way, like I think he measured it like 6.5 feet or something. He plays shorter than he is even. Like his posture in the pocket just isn't part of his skill, and part of his ability to be the greased up deaf guy is his ability to get small and stay small and be hard to find.
True.
And I think that makes it a little harder in the pocket for him when guys aren't limiting jumpers and are, Matt Pryor's size in front of him.
Definitely.
But so that's the full game of highlights for him. I have a half of Chris Lindstrom or of Kevin Zeitler.
I'm telling you, I know you want Chris Lindstrom, Q. I know you.
I know. I mean, don't we all, man? Like Chris Lindstrom would be sweet, but I have a half of Kevin Zeitler. This was just every play pretty much from the half. I couldn't actually get the time to break it down into positives and negatives, but I wanted to get some tape on him in here at least. So
we get to watch really good offensive line play now, Q, because we get to watch the Lions.
Yeah. So I didn't even get the arrows in here for it. He's 71, the right guard. I'm not sure. I'll have to check to see if Zeitler, actually I have it here. I'm just going to check it real quick. See if Zeitler ever played left side.
I think he's always played
Trey
right.
Smith is right. Did I spell Zeitler wrong? I before E except after C?
I before E before, in this case, it's E before I, especially after Z.
Oh, wait, yeah. I'm still on college. That's why I'm not finding it. Let's see.
Yeah, here he's listed as a right guard throughout his whole career. The last 2 years, he's just been called a guard, but every other year prior to that, he was listed as a right guard.
He has 4 snaps on the left side in his career.
Better than none.
It is better than none. And the
I will
reason
say
I ask
this
that is because Trey Smith has played right side his whole NFL career. So
right. And I will say this.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. I will say this too. Thinking back to Darren's question about tackles, guard a far easier position to flip-flop sides of the line than tackle, because you are moving in smaller space, and the technique is largely the same because you're a road grader either left or you're a road grader right. Like except for your pulls, there's really not a lot that changes from a lateral standpoint. Tackle's a lot different because of your sets and your angles and your sight lines and things like that. So
yeah.
Food for thought.
But so this first one, on initial watch, I wanted to see him get a bit more of a piece, but it didn't really matter. Like, I mean, I wanted to see it, but then Frank Ragnow does his job there, and Zeitler's able to get right up to the linebacker and play the play.
So good.
I know, man. I know.
I'm so jealous.
So fun. And Zeitler is a guy who I'm really interested in because, like, Trey Smith, we said, not a finished product.
Sure.
Drew Dalman, maybe he can be a leader on your O-line. Maybe he can't. I don't really know. Watching his play, I don't feel like he's the guy who can really hold everyone accountable. I think Kevin Zeitler can be a guy who walks in there, demands instant respect, and holds everybody accountable in that room. Because I think accountability is an issue for the Bears O-line.
Definitely.
Accountability and leadership. Like this one, not a great rep. Ends up on the ground. He's 34. But you know what? I see a lot more positives than negatives in his tape. Mm-hmm. And I think with the money that he's going to be making and with his resume in the league, he's a guy who's going to walk in and demand respect.
1,000%. 1,000%. And he's been around and he's done it for a long time. I mean, he's got almost 200 games.
He played with Joe Thomas. He played with Joel Bitonio. He's played with some outstanding offensive linemen, and he has a lot to teach guys, a lot to share with younger guys. And I just an O-line can't be all young guys. Like I just don't think it can be.
Especially in their first few years.
Yeah.
Like right now with Darnell Wright and potentially a rookie coming in the draft, most likely in one of the first 2 picks. And a Braxton Jones, who's only entering his 3rd year in the league next year. Right? 3rd year? 4th year? I guess he would technically be a 4th year player. But even then, right? Like these are all young guys. Having that guy that's 30-something years old on the offensive line, and he's done it for 13 years, absolutely demands respect. I mean, you look at that Lions offensive line. Penei Sewell's probably the only quote-unquote younger guy. Decker's been around for a hot minute. Gladnow's been around
by now.
Yeah, Ragnow's been around for a hot minute. All those guys been around for a hot minute. Sewell is probably the youngest of them, and he's still a 4th-year player, 5th-year player. Yeah. So, I mean, that shows experience plays when it comes to a position like offensive line.
Yeah, and I love this punch from Zeitler. I love the physicality of it, and I mean,
good feet too.
Don't let his age fool you. This dude's got pythons for arms.
Oh yeah,
he packs some power in his punches. Let's see. Yeah, that dude's got pythons for arms.
Yeah, that's a big dude.
He is jacked to the nines.
Just a freaking unit of a human being.
Yeah. So
he played his college ball at Wisconsin. Q, like Wisconsin just turns out offensive linemen.
That makes sense. Too bad Gabe Karimi couldn't be that. Anyways.
His name actually just came up yesterday in a discussion I was having with somebody.
Nice anchor here, just sets down, has the hands in the right position, gets that nice underhook on, and just latches on. Going nowhere.
Not a chance. Q, I'm not used to this. Watching good football.
I mean, this isn't even a good rep from him, but he still blocks it up.
Gets the job done.
This is the Darnell Wright win ugly no matter what rep. I love it. I love it when I see these.
Yeah, you still need those. I mean, if you get guys that can win the rep even through a dirty manner, you'll take that every single day. And then you got to let your back do something. That's why I swear the Bears are going to take a back in this draft. I really do. I think they want a guy who can complement DeAndre Swift more so than let DeAndre be the bell cow.
So Cam Scattaboo is the hot name right now. He's getting overhyped. He's probably not going to go as high as everyone wants him to right now. But you know what?
He's a mother.
If he can run like a 4.6 40,
yeah.
I see David Montgomery written all over him. If Ben Johnson is the Bears head coach, he loves him some David Montgomery.
It's true. It's true. And Scattaboo he's just a football guy.
Yeah. So this rep, I just thought it was a nice pull that he, on his radar, he finds his guy, latches on, does his job. Like that's not an easy thing to do. And you see the veteran know-how here of just how to get right into his guy and say, okay, you're done here. It's the play action, and I did my job. Like you see miss those pull blocks all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just got to sell it and understanding that you can sell it without getting out of position. And that's exactly what he did there.
Like to see him get a little better hands on the guy here and a little more drive. But like, again, he takes him out of position and lets Montgomery get a few extra yards from it because of it. He doesn't necessarily make a great block, but he gets there and impacts the guy's path to the football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it covers him up and forces him to take an awkward angle to try and tackle a full speed David Montgomery, which is certainly not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That defines the run lane.
Mm-hmm.
Gets put in a tough spot, but he still gets that twist and opens up the lane.
Yeah, it's actually a hell of a job by maybe is that Kenny Clark? I can't quite tell. That's a really nice job by the D tackle taking on a double team, though, because Zeitler and Penny Sewell are certainly not small boys on the
No,
right side of
not
that
at
line.
all. But once he gets him turned, he's able, like Zeitler is able to continue controlling Clark. Like that's something right now with like Jake Curran at left guard, we are just not seeing the Bears be able to do.
Right. So that control after initial impact.
Yeah. Be able to adjust on the fly a little bit here and just say, okay, that guy's, again, this is the veteran know-how of just saying, I don't even have time. I gotta trust Penny here because that guy is flying down to the run lane and I need to meet him.
Yeah, and great head placement, covers him up.
And keeps Monty clean for an extra few yards from it. Like that's just to me that there's so many little veteran things you see in Zeitler's tape that he does that like it might not stand out the loudest, but he's consistent and he does these little things right.
Oh, pin and pull.
Just to clarify here, since we don't have the arrows on, we're talking number 71, Kevin Zeitler right there.
Now that's Kenny Clark.
Yeah. And that's him doing a dang good job against Kenny Clark.
Sure is.
Like Zeitler won't be a long-term solution at 34 years old, but I'll be honest. If I think Will Freeze can play left side, I might prefer Will Freeze and Kevin Zeitler to Trey Smith and someone else.
Fair. And then it allows you to get creative in the draft. Do you take a stab on a guy like Will Campbell? Do you, do you wait on an offensive lineman then at that point maybe for
or with Braxton Jones injury issues, maybe you take a Josh Simmons in the first round.
Yeah.
If we're really talking take best offensive lineman out there, I think it might be Josh Simmons. And he's an offensive tackle. Ohio State left tackle. He's not playing because of torn ACL right now, but man, his tape is smooth.
He's just a dude.
Yeah. Able to get a little pop on the pole here. You don't see that all as often as you would expect as a casual viewer of blocking. Like you don't see a lot of guys give this pop on impact.
Agreed.
Because it's hard to commit that hard and still hit your target. Another pull from him here. Not much to see there. It's like I said, not all these reps really say something. It was just I threw this one together quicker than the other two.
Definitely. And another really good job here of nullifying Kenny Clark.
Yeah. I'm just going to let this keep playing at this point, but I'm really interested in Kevin Zeitler if Detroit doesn't bring him back because I think
definitely
he brings a presence that you just kind of need in your offensive line room, and he brings a security and a stability there of like, ooh, okay, I gotta rewind this one. I just like his hands here were just like moving like the Tasmanian devil on this. Like so, he's got Kenny Clark. He's helping on Tadarius Slayton. Slayton. He's a really underrated nose tackle, if I'm being honest. And then he's just able to get the stop on Quay Walker, and then just starts yanking him around and throwing some punches.
Just eat them.
Love that.
Yeah. I like what you said too, Key, right? Because you figure if you can get a guy like Will Freeze in the building, then maybe he's your upgrade at left guard, and you get a Kevin Zeitler in the building, he's your upgrade at right guard, and then maybe you do go out and get that true left tackle, and maybe it is Coleman Shelton for one more year at center, and maybe you draft the center later in the draft that you want to sit behind him and develop. Then all of a sudden you look at that line and you go, oh shit, there's your veteran. That's the guy that's going to teach all these guys to be pros. A third-year Darnell Wright, a first-year rookie tackle potentially. Freeze is still in, the early parts of his career. it would allow those guys to all learn from a guy who's just done it consistently for well over a
The
decade.
guy who shows them what they need to do in the offseason to have a 13-year NFL career.
Exactly.
You know, what it takes every
especially
to be
on the
a
offensive
Pro
line.
Bowl player.
Yeah, especially on the offensive line, Q. I mean, let's look at these numbers here. In Zeitler's career, he has played at least 15 games in every single season except 2.
Mm-hmm.
And even in those seasons, he played 12 games in both of those years.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a massive value to bringing in a guy like that, a guy like mentioned previously, John Tate, who had done it for years and was able to, you know, show the ropes, maybe a Roberto Garza in the room, because they, you know, that Bears offense line had Reuben Brown and John Tate. And I think those 2 guys were really invaluable for helping some of the younger guys, but it wasn't that young of an offensive line. This Bears offensive line is going to be young one way or another. I really want a vet in there who's showing them the ropes, showing them how to be professionals.
Yeah, I agree. You need that guy. That guy's incredibly important to the success of an offensive line, especially a young one. And I think, again, of what's available this year, I mean, he's the type of guy that can really make a difference, I think, in that Bears offensive line room.
Yeah, and I mean, even just thinking through watching this, it felt like he got better throughout the game. And I feel like a trend that I've seen with the Bears offensive line this year is they break down as the game gets into the late quarters.
Yep.
And they're like, Zeitler feels like a guy to me who knows how to save some gas for later in the game and knows how to tempo his play, which again is something I think that veteran leadership goes a long way towards showing the young guys how to go about a game.
Yeah, don't burn all your bullets in the first half. I mean, it's kind of like pitching. Don't burn all your bullets, you know, in baseball. Offensive line's kind of the same way. Yeah, you want to sell out on certain plays, but you also need to know when to, you know, what to do, the right positioning, the right technique. And that's a lot of it too. Kevin Zeitler just has great technique.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive line is a position where the guys that play for a long time are technicians, because that's how you conserve your body. It's how you avoid weird injuries, because you're not overextending yourself on blocks. And that's what they need. That's what the Bears have missed for a long time, is that veteran presence of a guy who, like you said, is just a pro's pro and can teach these young guys what it means to be a 13-year veteran in the NFL at the offensive line position.
And it's one thing when your O-line coach is looking at you and going, you lost that rep because your technique was shit. It's another thing when you look at the guy next to you and he says, you lost that rep because your technique was shit. You know, it's 2 different things coming from the coach versus coming the guy playing right next to you who got, you know, who got hung out to dry because of the way that you went about it. And
definitely,
it's also very different when that guy next to you is making league minimum versus when he's making $10 million a year and has a big resume to show for it.
Definitely.
But Ron, I think that wraps it up for us here on the on the free agent preview. I'll probably cut these up and get shorter videos out of them to be able to throw up on YouTube. And if you haven't already, we have a Will Freeze free agent preview on our page as well. So to go to On Tap Sportsnet on YouTube to find that. But Ron, any thoughts about how the Bears are going to approach this free agency, this draft, this offseason for building this offensive line into something more sustainable than what it is now?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that they need to the trenches are the most important thing they need to focus on this offseason. And I am in the mindset of, you know, it might not be Trey Smith, but as long as you are able to me, a perfect case scenario is at least 3 new starters. And in order to do that, it might take, you know, getting a little creative in free agency and not necessarily getting the top fish, but maybe you get 2 or 3 of those guys from that middle mark, you know, I'll call it the middle market area. And maybe you get a big gun in the draft then with the first round pick. I think that's where the Bears really need to attack. And, you know, I would love to just see what happens in terms of how they're going to approach this, because I think we're also going to learn a lot of how they're going to approach it too once we know who the head coach is of the Bears moving forward.
Yeah. And to one of these comments to Darren saying maybe they could get Jonah Jackson for a 4th round pick. He can't crack the Rams starting lineup. If the guy can't crack the Rams starting lineup, do I really want to be relying on him Like that's where I end up with that. Like it's
Fair question.
we've seen like Ryan Bates couldn't crack the Bills starting lineup, so they traded him to the Bears for a 4th round pick. Like I'm not saying Jonah Jackson is Ryan Bates. I like some of what I've seen from Jonah Jackson over the years, but like I don't if the guy's not cutting it for the Rams, whose offensive line is not exactly a powerhouse right now with the injuries they've dealt with all year, I don't know that I really want to be counting on them. And to your point, Ron, I think ideal world, you're right. 3 new offensive tackles. Yeah, I would love that. But or offensive linemen, not offensive tackles. 3 new
I'm not
linemen.
not trying to replace Darnell Wright. We like it. We'll keep him.
Outside of paying Drew Dalman top market value, I just don't know where an upgrade comes at center. I really don't. I don't know that a rookie in a weak center class is a guy that I'm really counting on there. Like I just struggle to see where you're getting an upgrade from Coleman Shelton other than Drew Dalman, who you're going to pay top dollar for. So we'll see. We'll see where they end up. Maybe Ricky Stromberg can surprise. I would think that we would have seen him by now if he was showing something on the practice squad. I would think the Bears would have tried to get a look at him in a live action game by now. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. In my mind, most likely scenario, you're talking 2 new offensive guards and Coleman Shelton with some competition from a rookie. That's where I think the offensive line, interior O-line is headed. I'm not against Josh Simmons in the 1st round. I like what we've seen from Braxton since Shane Waldron got fired. I like the variety that he started showing, his punches and his sets. But when you're talking about a guy who's missed 11 games over the last 2 years, I start to have real questions about how much I can count on them. And that's where I'm like, I know you just drafted Karam, but if you have a top 10 pick and Josh Simmons is sitting there and his knee checks out, I have a hard time passing on that too.
Yeah, I agree. I think it feels like this is an off season where they have countless directions to go when it comes to addressing the offensive line. It's just going to come down to what falls in their favor and who wants to come to Chicago. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we hear a lot of quick and big signings. We saw what happened to the Panthers. I know they still had a bad season, but you saw what happened when they invested in that offensive line around Bryce Young. You started to see some flashes of Bryce Young become a better football player and take those second-year steps forward. I think Caleb can do a lot of that. Offensive line is fucking important. The Bears need to invest in it one way or another.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ron, what do you say we close this thing out the only way we know how?
I love offensive linemen and bear down.
Bear down.